What do you mean when you say design? And we all have been there, guys. So design, when we all think of design, we think of fashion design and graphic design and posters and typography. Absolutely, yes. That's the craft of design. But design, Herbert Simon is an American scientist. He's also won multiple. You should definitely, I'm sure you would have known, I'm sure you would know him. He's a pretty renowned cognitive psychologist, award winner. The way he also defined the definition of design is to devise courses of action to change an existing solution to a preferred one. So design is, one part of design is the craft and the beauty and the all the nice frills around it. But the other part of design is about changing an existing situation to a preferred one. So imagine two things, right? Service, helping user achieve a goal. Design, changing the existing situation to a preferred one, is an intentional exercise of intentionally changing it, creating a preferred future for that user. And when both those come together, what happens? That's when service design happens, right? So, and that's where it's the choreography of an organization's resources, like people, technology, assets, props, processes, to improve the life of not just the customer, and that's interesting, also the employee, the partners. And service design is basically a holistic concept which ensures that the choreography, the planning, the organizing of all these actors, and we call them actors in service design space because they're all playing a role. It's almost like the theatrical act I showed you earlier, right? Everybody's playing a role. Everybody's critical for that service to help achieve the goal it has to achieve. The service design is about the choreography. It's about this word choreography. It's super fascinating. I'm sure you would have heard when you hear about choreography of these dance events and people choreograph a show. It's like that very careful, meticulous planning, organizing of when there will be a people-to-people interaction. When will technology come in? What assets will come in? How will they show up? What will they mean to my end user and to my employee, my partners? And what processes I need? All this comes together in this very interesting concept called service design. I'll pause here for a second for you to just soak it in. Any thoughts, any reactions so far? Is this in your head coming together? Concept of a service. What do I mean when I say design and service design? Anybody, please, anybody can feel free to unmute and say something. And don't hesitate, you can unmute and say anything. Trust me, it's all good. This is a safe space and we're all in it together. Okay, let's go further, and I'm sure it'll start coming together for you. And then if service design is about the choreography or all of these things in the spirit of improving the life of a customer, the life of an employee, life of a partner, then what are relationships? And the title of my presentation, right? Designing service relationships. Where does relationship come? Like, why do we even care? And why do we need to have relationships? Just go orchestrate and then your job is done, right? But relationships are critical. Relationships are at the core of any human interaction. These are the moments of trust, when somebody trusts you. And if you go back and think about your own relationships, when you could trust somebody, somebody cares for you, there is a real bond. That's when relationships happen. And in fact, I was reading some of the papers, it talks about relationships being these invisible forces. But I think it's not really invisible. It's still like you can point them out why people have strong relationships with something, because there's a sense of trust, care, that person understands you, they're there for you. So relationships are moments. And it's important to talk about relationships in the concept of service design, because there are multiple people interacting together. They are the customers who are the end customers who might be paying for that service, the employees, people who are facilitating, without which this service can never happen, stakeholders, your partners, your supply chains. Now these, again, we as human beings, we crave relationships, we crave bonding. We don't work like robots, just doing our job and that's it. We need to be able to connect. So the relationships in a service design are absolutely critical for so many actors to work together to deliver this choreography. And if you understand these relationships deeply, what challenges these actors face when they work together, what are their friction points, what are their needs, what's not working for them, the moment you start looking at it from a relationship lens, you will start uncovering opportunities for design and innovation. And that is why relationships are at the core of any service you see around yourself. You know, how can a restaurant very beautifully orchestrate an evening and serve you the best food? Because back there in the kitchen, there's a team that's working together. And the team absolutely is a winning team. They understand each other, they understand each other's strengths, and they're able to pull together each other to create that experience which you as a customer can enjoy. So hence relationships are at the core of service design. And this is an interesting screenshot. And I was thinking, hey, how do I show you relationships and how do I make it tangible for you? Because it's a little bit of a still philosophical concept. And I personally like to borrow concepts from philosophy to say, what does it mean? Because those are core, principles. This is a shot from Zomato. And I'm sure everybody knows this, right? So when COVID happened, right, Zomato did these small things. For example, your valet, and I'm sure other apps as well, but this is something which is top of my mind. Your valet has been vaccinated, so you feel that yes, Zomato cares. Zomato cares about me, my safety. And this order is related to a COVID emergency, and if I say yes, then they take extra care. So, Zomato understands my situation. So this is a very, very small, and you might just ignore it at times, which is a very small effort, a small, relationship intervention. Zomato has plugged in to the digital experience so that you as a customer feel the connect. You feel that yes, Zomato cares. Again, very, very small example, and I'm sure that there are tons and tons, and if I open up the floor right now, you'll share hundreds with me as well. But this is something which definitely touched my heart for sure. That yes, this is very beautiful. So what are the attributes of a good service, right? We talked about relationships, we talked about choreography, we talked about employees' experience is equally important as customers' experience, and partners' experience, ecosystems' experience is important. So attributes of a good service, and this is like very basic heuristics, but it's basic to anything, right? So it has to be clear. I should know what will this service do for me. Otherwise, I can't even use it. It should be findable. If I need to book a table for an evening in an Italian restaurant, I should be able to find it. So your service should be findable. It should be consistent. I might visit you very often. For example, another very interesting example when I think of services is passport. I'm sure people here would have applied for their passports, or I keep on renewing my passport because of my age. And my kids are young, so I keep on going back, and consistency is what I'm looking for. It should be consistent. If every time I come back to you, don't throw a different set of complexities at me. Be consistent. And consistency is hard. You might feel, consistency is boring, but it's hard. It's very hard to deliver the same value every time, like an engine. It's very hard. A service should be usable. You should be able to use it. Otherwise, what's the point? It should be intentional, and that's my favorite word, intentionality and intentional. It should be thought through. It should be for me. I should feel that there is a personal connect, and that's where the relationships form. It should be responsive. Something breaks. That's where the litmus test of services happen. All the nice, happy paths we create for our customers, the experiences we create, the The user experience we create, it's all happy path. The test happens when something breaks, and how you as a service, how you as an experience are responsive and are able to handle that gracefully. Services are caring. They show that they care. Responsible. Again, last, and there is a lot of debate, and I'm sure a lot of the faculties here, I'm sure can connect with me here. A lot of debate around, we are being human-centered at the cost of being, enemies to our planet. We are taking away too many resources from our planet and depriving our future generations. So, and that's the question, right? So human-centered is absolutely important, but planet-centered, being responsible for the future generations is the core of any service today. And that's the expectation from any service today. That's a bare minimum. So being a responsible service, not for the customers, but for your own employees, for your partners, for the planet, for the earth, for the society. How responsible are you? That's an important, and that's a very interesting attribute to think about. It should be smooth. Don't give me bumpy rides. In the moments of high and their peaks and valleys. No, it's very, very uncomfortable. So make it smooth, and I will make mistakes. I'm a user. I'm, any human being. We are all irrational human beings, and we make mistakes. We have biases. We mess up. Okay, shield me from errors. When I mess up, protect me, because I know that you care. And this is one list which and I'm sure when I open up the room that you might have other lists, this is also an attribute of a good service, but I think at least bare minimum, a service should think about these things. When you choreograph those experiences for the customers, for the employees, for the partners to help them achieve a goal, these attributes are absolutely critical. They're almost like heuristics, like rules of thumb.
Ruchi, I have another anecdote to share. Like in the COVID time only, there was a service provided by various agencies of, we can say, hotels and organizations. Like if you are fully vaccinated, then we'll provide this thing free to you. Mm-hmm. Like they were showing a concern that you just get vaccinated, and along with that, they were also providing us a privilege that you will get this thing free. So the points which you've told right now, probably they were like, I was able to relate those points: sharing, concern, responsive. So there was a very good service provided, and it also motivated people to get vaccinated. Itna kuch mil raha hai.
Exactly. It nudges you, right, in a very subtle way, without being like pushy. Ki itna karoge, and it's important for your own safety. And then we will do something for you, right? So,
Ruchi, I just had a thought, like, how important is UX writing in service design? Because what Sahil just said, where to versus pick up, so it's like send and submit. So are you submitting a form or are you sending a form? So this is something which is also like, a lot of designers, I feel like they forget that the words which you use are absolutely important, right? And it's the way Sahil got confused, where to. Instead, it would have just written pick up out there, and it would have made a lot of sense, right?
Absolutely.
So I would just say that if you could probably also touch upon that, it would be really nice.
Absolutely. And UX, that's a great point. So UX writing every word in the service. The word, the first one, the first attribute, right? Clear. It should be clear. What do you want the user to do? And through UX writing, through the whole design experience, through your navigation, the clarity has to be super clear. The moment you compromise on clarity, you lose that customer, you lose that employee, you lose that partner that very second. We think of services, so often people ask me, so what do you mean? Like, what is, I know graphic design, I know posters, I know UX screens, I know UI, but like, what do you create when you create service? Like, what do you create? Like, what's a tangible thing that comes out, right? So typically, and again, my experience, and of course, this space is such a vastly growing space. We will know more as we go along. We definitely touch these four things when we create these service experiences, these service relationships? We definitely create assets. It could be physical assets. So for example, if you're creating a service for a healthcare facility, and you might create physical assets. And there was a very interesting IDEO case study where the medical staff, the healthcare staff doesn't seem to be aligned on people's treatment, and it was just a small calendar they put out somewhere on the wall, which has resolved all the conflict. It was a very physical, small intervention, manual intervention, maybe you can call it, a paper-based intervention, but yet effective. So you build assets, and of course digital. So digital is the way people interact. Digital is the way, with COVID specifically, the fact that you could reach people in all different kinds of spaces and help is because of digital. So that is again another asset you would create. And tools for employees to do their job right, to deliver that service. Now, if you look at Zomato again, right, there is a rider, there is me as a Zomato customer, and there's a rider who drops the food at me. Now, the rider is in an uncomfortable situation, and there were so many stories last year where people were not treating them right. If the riders are not comfortable, the riders are not happy delivering that service, Zomato's business model is not existing. It's over. The rider is a very important part of their business model. So again, assets to ensure that the rider and any other actor in the ecosystem is taken care of. People, right? So one is you create assets, you have people. So you how do you shape those experiences of those people and ensure that the people are happy using those assets? So it's not just creating some cool apps, some digital apps here and there, and some fancy touch screens, but are people actually able to use it? Are they able to find value in it? So people is very, very important. People who contribute to a service, their access to these assets and their ease of using these assets is important. Now, one interesting, people might say culture is like, how do you design cultures, right? So culture is absolutely critical to a service, delivery of a service. So if the culture of an organization, and culture is not but the ways of working and the behaviors and the decisions an organization makes, if the culture is not aligned to shared values, then the service can't sustain for long. So for an organization like a Zomato, I'm sure there is a culture of experience, customer experience, rider experience, and hence they're consistently delivering on the service. Their incentives, their behaviors, the way they interact with each other is helping them do what they are doing. So culture is an important, and service designers do shape cultures in an organization. And that's a very vast topic on its own, but just, in terms of where all we touch, we definitely touch the culture and the policies and procedures and the workflow and the processes. So we are service designers, right? So we are not policy experts, but we are design experts. So we bring a design lens to process redesign, to workflows redesign, to ensuring those workflows are adding value to the people, ensuring those workflows are building the culture on shared, on shared values, and ensuring those workflows are connecting all the assets together. You don't have those assets space. So there are 4 big buckets. Just keep that in mind, where all a service designer contributes. Assets. And assets is easy to understand because you all are designers. You create stuff like UX and graphics and UI. But definitely think about people. Who are you creating for? Are they seeing value? Is it shaping a culture? Are we thinking about policies which guides decision making? All those are important facets of service design, which a service designer would usually touch. It says the way oil had fueled economies. Okay. And today the same job is done by data. So data of people's usage, behavior patterns. And we can only be able to leverage these huge amounts of information and data if we're able to create these unique services, not just products, but services, so that we can create very, very personalized, hyper-personalized, relationship-based experiences for people. So services will be at the heart as important as oil was and as important as, because data in isolation will do nothing for anybody. Information about anybody will not help unless you stitch it together into a very beautiful service. That's where the magic comes. So services will grow, service space will grow, and because of its shared nature of human-centeredness attached to service design. And here's some of the examples, Zomato Pro, and I know they also came up with climate conscious delivery. So you can actually say small things they do, which I think is very meaningful to me. And these are not just UX, UI things, guys, just note. Saying no to cutlery, there's a huge supply chain behind it. I'm very sure that they don't do cutlery. And then also at times they say, hey, this is a more climate friendly delivery. They're also doing carbon offsets to kind of offset all the impact they're making on the environment. So it's not just UX, UI, but there are business model and service decisions they're making behind the scenes. It makes them look like a responsible service. And recently, I'm not sure if Zomato has backed up Blinkit. Have anybody heard of Blinkit recently, guys? Anybody? It's got mainstream last few years, but it's not a new concept. It's been lurking around and it's been deliberated around. But now I think the more complex experiences are becoming, more customer expectations are increasing. Now organizations are realizing that it's an important topic. It's an important space to get in, and that's why the traction and the mainstream nature of service design today. But it's been there, guys, and not just 1982. Let me show you one more picture. It goes back. So the culture of service goes back to 10,000 BC. I was just reading up on it. I said, my God, seriously, it's not even 1982. It's way back. When the first time there was this concept of customer service introduced, then these people like priests used to offer religious services like intangibles, and then the co-creation. Plato talked about co-creation or co-design of services. It goes really way back. And if you look in 1913 and 30 and then way back dates, and then 70s is where design thinking came in, and when services became much more design, human-centered oriented, and all the journey it has gone through. In fact, Donald Norman spoke about in 1990 when he joined Apple. It's not just about that one intervention, it's about the holisticness. So it's gone into mainstream just 5 years back, but the concept of service, the concept of co-creating, the concept of human-centered services has been around in the past. There's a lot of history to it. And again, if you are a history person, I won't bore you with a lot of history, but if you are a history person and if you're very interested, this is the book you all should pick up. It's a tiny history of service design. I think it's a very nicely done book. It's done by Daniel. It's beautiful, and he also runs a newsletter. So do subscribe for it. But I'm not promoting, I'm just saying I think it's a very useful resource. It's good to know about the history of certain things. So the concept goes way back. And again, let's move forward. And again, services is one, but we are actually right now in the experience economy, and just having a service is not enough. Whenever you try to understand a concept, right, a phenomena of service and experience, you should also always map it to how it maps to the economic progress of the world, right? So how people are growing economically and how things are bringing. So service, when we think about experiences, this is a very interesting analogy. As I said, like from the cake analogy, right? There was commodities, we make goods out of it, we delivered services, but now there is, to stay competitive in the market, to charge a premium price, like people walking into a Disney, a Disneyland and paying for a premium price for just the experience. So services along with experience is becoming the status quo. It's becoming the need of the hour. So that's where the relationships come in. But so not just a basic service, but how do we create an experience? An example I give you here. This is like a favorite example. Everybody loves it. So simple cup of coffee and walking into a Starbucks. What's the difference? So even if a small coffee shop offers you the service of coffee. But what Starbucks does is it takes it to the next level. They say, hey, yes, I'll give you coffee, but you know what? I'll give you a very nice, cozy place with free Wi-Fi and, nice, comfortable seating to have a conversation. And that's a service they have built. And they have completely built their business model around it. So not just stay at services, but start elevating yourself to service experiences. That's the frame we need to start taking. And this has also happened. One is, of course, the need to, be experiential. The other is there is a gap. So the technologies are evolving really fast, and what technologies can do is yet to be seen. We have just scratched the surface. Now, with the help of these service experiences, we can bridge the gap between the exponentialness of the technology and what they're doing today. So even more important has become for us to think of these holistic service experiences, when we are solving problems for customers, for employees, and choreographing these. Are we really creating an experience? Are we just creating a bare minimum service? Again, always pushing the boundaries. How are we creating new ways of value for the employees, for the customer, for everybody in the ecosystem? Itna kam se kam karo, lekin impactful banao. Don't try to make 100 other apps. Okay, do one thing, and also organizations, there's a pattern of coming together as an ecosystem. For example, मैं एक पूरा end-to-end service है. For example, you can imagine airport experience. Okay, you walk into an airport, you onboard, you do your onboarding, and then you go through the whole checking and security check, and then there are retail shops. So there you can shop and then grab a coffee and then catch the flight. Right now, this is an end-to-end. For a passenger, it's an end-to-end airport experience. Okay. Now, there might be different actors who might bring in small parts of the experience. ठीक है, मैं ये करूँगा. दूसरा बोलेगा, ठीक है, I will facilitate the onboarding. The one will say, okay, I will ensure biometric onboarding. You don't have to show anything. Just walk into the airport, right? So different parts of that service. Now, you don't have to build everything. You can come together as an ecosystem and create that. So that there is not like one app, multiple apps solving one problem. So that's something there's a huge shift that's happening right now, that how do we do more with less? And all this app culture, yes, there will be a check that will happen. You will see apps, kind of starting to not go away, but start questioning that why do we exist? And can I come together with another service to become an ecosystem, then become a standalone app which don't get used for months and months, right? So that's a little bit of a check that will happen and already happening. So goals to keep in mind when you design any services, right? So one is absolutely the way I said earlier, it has to be human-centered. It has to be about people who are using it, people who are, helping influence the service. It has to be human-centered. Now, co-creative, not one person can create an end-to-end service. It has to be multiple stakeholders coming together. For a Uber or a Zomato or a Blinkit to work, it's not just one Grofers who's doing it. Grover must be partnering with 5 more, supply chain folks to facilitate that. They need the partnership of local retailers. In fact, how are they able to deliver a 10 minutes promise? Because they have partnerships with local grocery retail shops. That's how they're able to do that. So it has to be co-creative. Services has to be coming together, not in isolation. It has to be, as I said earlier, orchestrated. What elements come when? So the concept of timing is very important. At what moment, what service experience you would see. It has to be tangible. And a lot of, few years back, people used to say services are intangible. It's like this whole mushy feeling, but no, there has to be tangible. Whatever moment, whatever value you want to create, it has to be in a form of a physical product, a digital product. It has to be tangible, which is something you can experience in your hand. And it has to be holistic. It has to be end-to-end. It's not just one moment, but the end-to-end moment. Remember the definition of service I gave you. It has to help the user achieve their goal.
I think, hi Ruchi, Gopal here.
Think about it.
I think this is a great, a thought for design academicians, and it's that, to a complete design education system, that how, the design can be taught in a system thinking level,
Absolutely.
Not in isolation.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you. My yesterday talk was all about, looking at, the humanity and not the humans.
Yeah.
And we have really,
How do I do this? So how it's any service project, any service design project, we always start with alignment. Alignment with the stakeholder, alignment with the context, alignment with the business. That's the most important. It's not about just being a warrior and jumping straight in ki aaj to sab kuch bal dalenge. Don't do that, trust me. It's a complete disclaimer. Don't do it. Just pause and understand. What are you doing? What are you trying to solve for? Align with the business teams, the organizations you're designing it for. Maybe you're internally designing a service for your own team. Align with different stakeholders. We do alignment in different ways. We conduct stakeholder alignment workshops, where and there are multiple occasions, when we're designing a service and we realize that all the stakeholders, when we interview them, they all have multiple perspectives. So we bring them in a workshop. Come on, let's just align first, because there's no point me going to a place where you might say, hey, we never wanted this. Why have we even done this in the first place? It's a waste of time. So alignment is important. This is before getting to alignment workshop or any kind of alignment discussion is important for you as a designer to prepare, to understand the situation, to have some kind of a brief that we are meeting for this kind of a service, this kind of a problem we are solving. And honestly, as of now, I'm going to wear my practitioner hat, and all this while I was hearing my more like a learner and my academia hat, but this is more like my practitioner hat, that you never go into a discussion blank, never, always prepared. So if you and none of the I have never seen a client who comes and tells me, hey, can you do service design for me? It doesn't happen, guys. It doesn't happen like that. That's not how. So, we all designers we love to shape the world we want to see, but the life out there is very different. So typically organizations come to you with a problem. It could be a process problem. It could be a digital problem. It could be a culture problem. It could be any problem. And that is where you as a designer have to take a call, that will a service design lens help? Okay, how can I use it from a contextually that lens, and how can I bring it in this discussion? That's on you. Nobody will ask you to do it. You can still go and build that one specific process and one specific digital app and get away with it, right? But as a service designer, if you are a true service designer at heart, you will say, okay, let me hear the business problem first. And there's also a future blueprint, or what is the service you want to build in the future. But I'm just talking about the current right now. This is more like a synthesis tool for the research to become more clearer to people who are non-designers. So once you've plotted your customer journey, you see a dotted line. Okay, so this is called the line of interaction. So this is where the customer, below this line is where the customer interacts with the organization. Okay, it's called line of interaction. So then when the moment the customer, for example, the customer visits the website, there's something called a concept of front stage. And that's very unique to service blueprinting. So customer journey, they interact with the front stage employee. The front stage employee could be your call center. It could be a support chat. It could be a representative in your retail store. That's the front stage employee. He is interacting with the customer directly. So you plot the front stage employee. So for example, I walk into a SBI bank. Okay, don't kill me. I know everybody loves SBI, but don't kill me. I walk into the SBI. I want to open a new account. Okay. I walk in, I go in and I ask at the reception, the journey I'm taking, right, as a customer. I ask the reception, hey, where can I inquire? And she sends me to another table. And then they send me to another table. And eventually they give me a bunch of forms. I fill the form and then ask them, when do I expect and then say, we'll call you. And I come out waiting for somebody to come and open the account for me. Now, I'm actually interacting in that phase with the bank staff who is helping me give the forms and helping me with opening the bank account. So that's the front stage as a swim lane. Then you see another line, which is called the line of visibility. Okay, now above the line of visibility, everything is visible to the customer. But below the line of visibility, the customer can't see what's happening behind the scenes. It's almost like, remember that in the beginning I showed you the restaurant, the kitchen, right? So the restaurant, people are having beautiful food, the servers are serving amazing friendly staff, but what's happening in the kitchen, the customer won't know. What's happening behind the stage of the theater show, the customer won't know. It's that line of visibility. What's happened behind the service, the customer is not able to see, but there are people who are involved. They are the employees, the partners, the service providers. They are also adding value to this customer journey, right? So you plot.
Here again.
Yes, Gurleen.
Since we are talking about various the process basically, and we have talked about we have to wear different hats. Sometimes it's the researcher, sometimes it's a practitioner, and a lot there are so many things, and we are learning these processes. And if in that processes it is very difficult for us to wear every hat in a correct manner. I cannot be a practitioner, a good practitioner, and a researcher. I can be, but it is difficult, yes. So along with that, I have to manage the time also. So how a student should go, a learner should go and wearing all the hats properly, just come up with correct thing.
Yeah, so you don't have to wear all the hats, okay? And I have this slide in the end, but I thought I'll bring it forward. You work in a very cross-functional team, okay? So you might say, Ruchi, you know what? I enjoy the research process. I'm your researcher, okay? So you only wear the researcher hat. But then there is a service designer who will say, hey, you go and find insights and map it, then I'll help you design these services. There'll be a communications designer who will say, hey, I'll help you stitch the communication. And there'll be an operations designer who will look at the process. So again, you don't have to wear all the hats, but it's important for you to understand that you would need to work. You can't design a service on your own. You have to work in a cross-functional team. And your ability to interact with that team, your ability to communicate your contribution becomes even more important. A design researcher on a service project is a lifeline. We can't do without it.
Enjoying this entire process. So I would just say that there was an experience which we built for, I would say, a restaurant. And I was just we just scan the QR code, right? Today we scan so many QR codes and we just get linked to an app, or we just get linked to our Facebook on WhatsApp, right? I scan my WhatsApp and I just get linked to my WhatsApp. And we solved a huge banking issue because we had solved that problem in WhatsApp. And hence we used that same in a London bank, where we realized they needed special QR code generators every time they wanted to transact a card. So we said, please, this is redundant. You don't need the system. All you need to do is just scan a QR code. That came from another industry. So this is exactly how, you start building your muscle, is what she was talking about, right?
Absolutely.
You use your references from one industry to another and make things very seamless.
Yeah, that's a great point you're making. I think, okay, let me solve this slice first. Okay, let me solve one touch point, maybe one experience, and see how it feels. Because again, imagine, right? So that first quote I had, the chair in the context of a room. Now, if I solve for the chair, am I shaking something else somewhere else? So you start extracting those slices. Now, how do you extract a slice, right? In services, we have this concept of zoom level, right? That there are different zooms. This is an interesting chart. It's on on one axis, it has zoom level. So from one action, it goes up to one experience. So one action could be a small app, one touch point, one website, that's one action. And it could go as big as one experience, like one channel, digital as a channel. On the other axis, you have stakeholder complexities. It's one channel complexity or multi-stakeholder. For example, 5 people are coming together to create that service. So what Zoom level do you want to design for? Do you want to design for one touch point? Do you want to design for multiple channels, multiple touch points together, like a couple of applications coming together? So for example, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not one app actually. I'm sure you know this, right? LinkedIn has multiple apps. LinkedIn Learning, LinkedIn Network, and it's an ecosystem. Okay, so it's an ecosystem they're developing as a service for careers and people's professional lives. So you decide the Zoom level you want to design, and that is again in consultation with the business team you work with. Like, where do we start? Where can we start making a difference? So scoping the service, so examining the full service, but scoping a small piece to start. That's the point. Create prototypes of those moments using low fidelity, objects. So for example, this one is interesting visual. This lady has a cardboard. She's testing an application and she has these cardboard walls built in, a cardboard device built in, very low fidelity, but she's testing her service in that context. So keep on creating low fidelity. We also use role modeling. Let's role model. How will this service look like? When people walk into a bank, who will they ask for new account opening? What tools they would use? So role modeling, low fidelity prototyping, keep doing that. Don't wait for the whole service to get over and then you will do something and build. Designers, one thing we guys do very good, we build stuff, we create stuff. You cannot sit just thinking, analysis paralysis, don't do that. Quickly go build something, test it. Maybe it's a small service, very lo-fi, put it out there, get feedback and get sharper. Prototype बन गया, टेस्ट कर दिया, क्लाइंट को दे दिया, ओके थैंक यू सो मच, नाइस मीटिंग. बट अब क्लाइंट क्या करेगा इसका? How will they make it? And how will they run a successful business out of it? How will they make money out of it? So that is where it's important for service designers to now wear the hat of a business strategist. Okay, let me tell you, how do you business model this? And this is again one of my favorite frameworks, and it's called the business model canvas. For that specific service, let's map the model. What partners you would need, what activities you would do, what costs you would incur. You would need technology costs, you need infra costs, you need to pay salaries, you need to build a software, you need to do partnerships. In fact, I was working with a but has it been measured? Has it been successful? You might have a service which has not worked or needs some fine tuning. So how do you measure your service level outcomes? Not your app, not your click-through rate, not your subscription rate, but at a service adoption rate, service usage rate. It's important to measure these service at a service level, or what kind of outcomes. And this is an interesting.
But I think, I've really connected with what you have just, shared, because me coming from an hospitality industry where I've worked with F&B service, we know how the services used to be. And this is 2 decades back when there was no digital so important. And I also looked at one of the case study where I was reading an article about Mumbai attack. And what Azmeena was saying, how they have looked at the various other aspects of industry to really nail down the entire Mumbai attack. Because, the behavior, as soon as it happened, there were multiple people, and there was also, fortunately, there was a designer on that team.
Yeah, fingers crossed, designers have to be everywhere, I think it's right.
According to me, what is really going wrong is when people have already identified the problem and then they call the design team.
That's and it's an industry.
Good thought.
It's an industry problem, and we are almost running a movement to abolish that problem. I have a team of 200 designers, and every designer, that's my charter to them. I say, go and find what's happening. This is not the problem. I'm very sure they don't know how they solve it. So yeah, you're right. It's a little bit of a problem which we all are grappling with, and I think the more designers we can make them aware, upskill them, give them tools, I'm very sure they'll go out there and do wonders.
Yeah.
So we have
design is an afterthought for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
But the way design is booming, now everybody wants a designer on the team. I'm sure soon it's going to change and we're going to be on the seat on the table, you know, and the decision-making space. So that's where we need to create the army. And that's what we have right now in front of us. You know, we need to create that entire army to go out there and fight that battle, you know.
Absolutely. So fantastic. Ruchi, thank you so very much. And for this amazing session. I think the way you connected dots about everything has left all of us with so much of thought. Even people like me who are from a non-design background, believe you me, I mean, the depth of the whole thing that goes behind what we see in an app is like fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Azmeena, also for being there and sort of, you know, making it more interesting. Thank you so much, Ruchi, from all of us here. And I'm sure we are going to see much more of you, and we can't thank you enough. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, students, for being such an amazing, responsive audience out there.
Amazing.
And what an amazing session. One of the best sessions, at least I have participated in. Thank you so much, Ruchi,
I want to thank you. I think thank you and the team and the students, right? So all of you guys who spoke and everybody else, I'm sure is very focused listening, and I can see all the cameras on, right? So I can
Absolutely.
See focused.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here, for listening to me. I know I can go on and on, but thanks for being patient.
Not at all.
Being here. Thank you so much.